Salve, Discipuli. Alright, we're going to get started looking at the grammar of lesson 37. There's some kind of bizarre things going on. There's a few new words that have just slightly bizarre forms. So let's get started learning these. We're going to start with the word ipsa, ipsa, ipsum. Okay, this is what's called an intensive pronoun or adjective. Ultimately, it means something self, like himself, herself, itself, myself, ourselves, okay? And usually it's going to be in there as an adjective, and usually it's going to be modifying another noun that's stated in the sentence itself. Okay, so it might be something like, the boy himself went to the store, or we love puppies themselves. Something like that. So it's actually modifying another noun and sort of just intensifying it, if you will. Okay? Now, in terms of the form of ipsa, ipsa, ipsum, it is very basically a first and second declension adjective. Alright? So most of its endings are going to be like us, pattern, and you can see it almost is us, It has e instead of us, otherwise it would be an us, pattern. Okay, it's basically a first and second declension adjective. Okay, but there are a couple places where it very noticeably deviates from a first and second declension pattern. The genitive singular is ipsius. It's that way for all of the genders. Okay, masculine, feminine, neuter. Genitive singular is ipsius. The other place where it deviates from the normal second declension pattern is the dative singular is ipsi, okay, I-P-S-I, for masculine, feminine, and neuter. So basically what it amounts to is things are pretty much what you'd expect from the second declension, first and second declension, us, except the genitive singular, which is ius, and the dative singular, which is e. Okay, the rest of the way it's first and second declension. Okay, so that's ipsa, ipsa, ipsum. Himself, herself, itself, whatever. We're done with that. Let's try the next new word. There's the word idem, eadem, idem. Okay, it goes like this. Idem, eadem, idem. Okay, this word is basically is, ea, id, plus dem added to it. You can see that very clearly here. The ea becomes eadem. The id becomes idem. That makes pretty good sense. The is goes through a minor transformation and becomes idem. But it's basically this word, is, ea, id, plus dem. Okay, so what do you need to know about this word? First of all, the word itself means same. Okay, so I might say, the same boy went to the store. That would be idem puer. Okay, or the same women always follow me. Eidem feminae. The same women always follow me. That would work. So the word basically means same. Okay, now, it essentially follows the pattern of is, ea, id, which is basically a first and second declension pattern with a few exceptions. Okay? What's unique about this word is no matter what case it's in, it's going to end in dem. Alright, let me give you an example. Ao is the ablative form of is, ea, id, the ablative masculine form. Aodem, notice the ao here, is the ablative masculine form of idem. The dem at the end, the dem at the end does not tell you the case. You have to look at this part to figure out the case. Okay? And when you see that ao, you know ablative. Alright, let me give you another example. Aisdem. If we looked at the dem, we'd be like, oh, that's clearly accusative because of the em. No! You can't look there. You have to look in front of the dem at the ais, and that long is is either ablative or dative. All right? Cool. We get that. So, what else is unusual about this? Well, its genitive singular and its dative singular are kind of strange. And they're kind of strange in the same way the last word, ipsa, ipsa, ipsum, was kind of strange. So you guessed it. Here we are once again going to have ius in the genitive singular, eiusdem, and we're going to have the letter I in the dative singular, aidem. Okay, we end up with eiusdem for the genitive singular, all genders, and aidem for the dative singular, all genders. So that's weird. The other thing that's kind of weird is consider eum, which is the accusative form of is. You'd expect that we just put dem on it to form the accusative form of same. But in fact, the Romans found this hard to say. Eumdem. That was hard. So what the Romans ended up doing, instead of saying eumdem, they said eundem. That's so much easier. So if you have an M that's going to be followed by this dem, whoa, I didn't want that to happen. There we go. If you have an M followed by a dem, the M becomes an N. So you get eundem as your accusative masculine singular. If you had eorum, which is the genitive, instead of saying eorum dem, which is hard to say, they said eorundem, which is only slightly less hard to say. Okay, so that would be your genitive. All right? So, the main message, don't let the dem fool you. It does not tell you that this is accusative. You have to look in front of the dem to find the case. Eorun, that's a lot like eorum. This must be genitive. All right, enough of that. Let's find one more set of words. Okay? What's coming at you now is what a lot of people call special adjectives. Okay? These are a group of adjectives that have a few things in common. Now these adjectives are going to spell out unus, are going to spell out unus nauta. Okay? One sailor. And sailor is a word that is first declension, but it's actually masculine. So these two things agree. One sailor. Okay, here's what these words actually are. Unus, una, unum, which means one. Then nullus, nulla, nullum, which means none, or I should say no or not any. Then we have ulus, ula, ulum, which means any. Then we have solus, sola, solum, which means alone or only. Then we come down here. We have neuter, neutra, neutrum, which means neither. We have alter, altera, alterum, which means the other. Okay, this is only out of two possibilities. So you've got one, then you've got the other. Then we have uter, utra, utrum, which means which of two possibilities. Then we have totus, tota, totum, which means whole or entire. Then finally we have alias, alia, aliud, which means other or another. Okay, so these are the special adjectives. Unus, nauta. Might help you remember these adjectives. Okay, why do I make such a big deal out of these adjectives? All right, get ready for something extremely anticlimactic. We have this category of adjectives for two reasons. They all have a genitive singular form that ends in ius. They all have a dative singular form that ends in I. That's it. That's it. That's all there is to these special adjectives. Their genitive singular ends in ius. Their dative singular ends in the letter I. And otherwise, they pretty much follow the first and second declension. Okay? So, I'll give you more information coming up about what I really want you to do with all of this, but I definitely want it in your notes, and I definitely want you to understand that all these words have a genitive singular of ius and a dative singular of I. Okay, I am almost done here. There's one last thing for me to say, and that is, that is, you have this word uterque, utraque, utrumque. Okay? This word means each of two. So let's say I'm talking about two things, and I want to say each of them do this. I use uterque, utraque, utrumque. It might be obvious to you, but these are basically just the word uter, utra, utrum plus que. Well, guess what? The que part will not tell you what case it is, because the que part will always be the same. It won't tell you anything. It's what comes before that will tell you the case. So utrumque, okay, that's either going to be accusative or neuter nominative singular. Okay, you get the idea. If you saw utrisque, you would know that this is dative or ablative plural from the east right here. You can't look at the que part to get the case. Okay, it's not unlike the word we just saw a little bit ago, the idem, adem, idem, where the dem will not tell you the case. Okay, that's all for today. I know that's probably quite a bit confusing. Just make sure you have good notes. Make sure you have some idea of what's going on. That's all I ask, some idea. And we'll take it from there tomorrow. Okay, later, Discipuli.